Shalom everyone, and welcome to the channel. If you enjoy the content that you see today, leave a like down below, and please consider subscribing to the channel and become part of our growing community. With all that out of the way, enjoy the video. Shalom. Shalom and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the very quickly rising anti-Semitism that we are seeing not only in our nation, but around the world. And what's troubling to me is that you see it coming mainly from the Christian community, the so-called Christian community. And that gives me a moment to pause and to try to understand how this thought process could invade this community. Of all communities, this community, the Christian community, that there has to be something more nefarious going on than just this conflict or war, whatever you want to call it, that's going on in Iran today. And not only in Iran, but in the happenings that took place in Gaza with Hamas and the Houthis and so on and so forth. But we've seen this dramatic turn of people that were supporting Israel around the world from October 7th on. October 7th, there were some people that were on board with supporting Israel and defending herself. And since then, it has become increasingly anti-Israel or anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic thoughts that have been permeating this Christian community. And so I want to delve a little bit deeper as to where this is coming from. Where is the root? How is this disease spreading? This cancer is spreading. There is a Bible teacher by the name of Joel Richardson that did a very good job on explaining this gentleman by the name of Alexander Dugin and his philosophy, his philosophical ideas of his worldview, of how he sees things from a Russian perspective. He's a Russian philosopher, calls himself a Russian philosopher, but as we're going to see, he has deeper roots than just that. But he exposes how many of the commentators, such as Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, and many others, have been almost mouthpieces for Alexander Dugin. They have brought him in their platforms and their shows in the past, and promoting him as some great thinking philosopher, this think tank that's coming from Russia. And he had a really good a video that kind of explained that. I want to play a short clip of Alexander Dugin's his roots, where he came from, his mentality, and how he sees the world. He's not just a Russian, or he calls himself now a Russian Christian Orthodox, but that, as we're going to see, is a cover for what he really stands for. And there's video out there of him celebrating Alexander Dugin. Celebrating Aleister Crowley, which, as you know, if you've done any type of research, Aleister Crowley was known as one of the world's most evil men. And I'll let you kind of do your own study on that. But Aleister Crowley was behind a lot of satanic things that was going on. But I just want to show you a really quick clip from Joel Richardson's channel.
Again, a short clip of Alexander Dugin reciting poetry, the poetry of Aleister Crowley, at a memorial service where he was essentially celebrating Aleister Crowley.
Я прошу почтить память умершего Алистера Кроули минутой молчания. Если есть в зале какие-нибудь зажигалки и спички, вы можете зажечь и минуту помолчать.
О мой Бог! Един Твой исток, един Твой дух, едино Твое изменение. Позволь мне воспеть Твои совершенства перед людьми. В образе шестиконечной звезды, сверкающей сквозь глупые своды, позволь мне объявить о Твоих совершенствах. Ты явился мне как очень старый Бог, достопочтимый Бог, господин времени с острым серпом. Ты явился мне как радостный и довольный Бог, исполненный могущества, король, отец.
As you can see from that video, Alexander Dugin was completely engulfed in Satanism. Joel goes on to make the argument that Alexander Dugin his ideology revolved around Nazism, Satanism, and communism. Everything that Christianity is supposed to be against. Nazism, Satanism, and communism. But yet we see Alexander Dugin entangled in that worldview. And I want to play a couple more clips here. I'm going to show you one of Alexander Dugin explaining how Israel is to blame for a lot of the things that are going on. And this video, I believe, was from a year ago. Let's see here, 8 months ago. So it was in regards to the Israel attacking Iran. The first time, I believe, was if I'm correct, last summer. So here's his reaction on that. And just keep in mind that his worldview involving Nazism, Satanism, and occultism and communism just by default is against Israel, against his anti-Semitic ideas. So let's listen to what Alexander Dugin has to say.
I think Israel is a threat because Russia is no threat at all to Europe, and Israel is really, but by totally different reason. Because Israel now is going to involve European Union in global conflicts against possible European allies. So because Europe depends on the energy matters and many other aspects from Arab countries, from Middle East, from Russia. Europe depends from the oil, and Europe has a huge amount of Muslim population. And now, after this attack, I think that this Muslim population will be very, very negative toward the governments who support Israel. So that is the real bomb put inside of European Union. But the European elite, globalists, much worse than modern American governments. So I think they are hostages of this crazy tendency. The other eschatology, liberal end of history of Fukuyama, that is secular, liberal, individualistic, post-humanist, LGBT project, how to end the history. So liberalism, it is one eschatology, one teaching of the last time more to add to Greater Israel project, to Mahdi vision of Shia world, to Katechon concept of Russian Federation. Russia considers herself to be Katechon, the keeper, the spiritual, metaphysical figure that doesn't let the Antichrist to arrive. That is our vision of end time. And the Americans who have spoken about American Protestants, they have their own vision of how the world should end. So we are inside of competition between different versions of the.
So you saw there Alexander Dugin, in his own words, explaining how he believes that the attack on Iran, he didn't say, I don't believe he said Iran in that, but that's what it's in regards to, how Israel is at fault. And if you've done any type of research or been watching, if you know anybody who does not have their head in the sand has seen almost every single commentator and political pundit and podcaster have been using this war with Iran against Israel, defending herself in a manner, in many fashions. Some of them come from different angles, but nevertheless, at the end of the day, they are all against Israel, pretty much across the board. And that is a cause for concern. It should be a cause for concern for those who are followers of the Messiah and followers of God. and the true events of what's going to happen in the end times. And I want to show another clip here of just to show how Alexander Dugin is being platformed almost as a hero. Keep in mind, when he, as you saw in the video, the first video that I showed, he was celebrating Aleister Crowley, one of the most evil men that has ever lived. And he goes from living in that world of Satanism and occultism, and now he is hailed as a Russian philosopher. And we're going to see a little bit later on from a journalist, a Russian journalist, mind you, that exposes him, how Alexander Dugin was starting to see that they needed to do something different in Russia because Russia was changing drastically. But before I get to that, I want to show a clip really quick of a couple of podcasters here that are platforming Dugin and almost displaying him as a hero. So let's watch.
Alexander Dugin is a 62-year-old Russian academic philosopher. He spent his life in Moscow. He was an anti-Soviet dissident as a young man. And now he is famous the world over, in the English language press anyway, as, quote, Putin's brain. But he is not a political figure here in Russia. He is, once again, a philosopher. And his ideas are deeply offensive to some people. In August of 2022, his only daughter was murdered in Moscow when a car bomb killed her. U.S. intelligence says she was murdered by the Ukrainian government, and we take that at face value. But what's interesting is that, once again, Alexander Dugin is not a military leader. He's not a close daily advisor to Vladimir Putin. He is a writer who writes about big ideas. And for this, his books have been banned by the Biden administration in the United States. You cannot buy them on Amazon, banning books in the United States because the ideas inside are too dangerous. He is often described, again in the English language press, as far right. We'll let you assess, but we wanted to talk to him about some of his ideas, these ideas that are so dangerous that his only daughter was murdered over them, and his book's been banned in the United States. And so we're happy to have him join us now. Mr. Dugin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and welcome to Moscow.
Of course, thank you. So we were talking off camera. Actually, we were having a conversation that we were not going to film, just interested to meet you. But what you said was so interesting that we got a couple of cameras and put this together. And my question to you was, what do you think is happening in the English language countries? And I said, all of them, United States, Canada, Great Britain, New Zealand, Australia, all at once seemed to turn against themselves. And you had this great turmoil, and some of the behaviors seem very self-destructive. And where do you think, as an observer, that comes from?
So I could just express my reading of that. It demands a little patience. So I think that everything started with individualism. So individualism, that was a wrong understanding of the human nature, of the nature of man. When you identify individualism with the man, with the human nature, you cut all the relations to everything else. So you have very special idea of the subject, philosophical subject, as individual. And everything started in the Anglo-Saxon world with Protestant reform and with nominalism. Before that, nominalist attitude that there are no ideas, only things, only individual things. So individual, it was the key, and is still key concept that was put in the center of liberal ideology. And liberalism, as in my reading, it is a kind of historical and cultural and political and philosophical process of liberation of individual, of any kind of collective identity, collective or that transcends individual. And that started with refuse of Catholic Church as collective identity, of empire, Western Empire as collective identity. After that, it was a revolt against a national state as collective identity in favor of purely civil society. After that, there was a big fight of the 20th century between liberalism, communism, and fascism, and liberalism has won once more.
Yes.
So, and after the fall of the Soviet Union, there was only liberalism, and Francis Fukuyama has pointed out correctly that.
So here we see Alexander Dugin speaking against individualism in promoting a community, almost communism, almost. But the point I wanted to show or to draw with this clip is that Tucker Carlson is platforming Alexander Dugin as if he's just a writer or just a philosopher, when in fact you just saw the video of Alexander Dugin in his younger years celebrating a Satanist, blatantly celebrating a Satanist. And you may think that maybe he's changed his worldview or he's changed it, but you see this consistently. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned earlier, it's a Russian writer who wrote an article, and Joel Richardson speaks about this in his video as well, that wrote an article against, or not against, but kind of exposing Alexander Dugin and where his philosophy comes from. And he comes across as if he's a Christian. And you're going to see the same theme with these other people, with Alex Jones or Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, or, even the ones that are, I think, a little bit more milder, but are still coming harsh against Israel, such as the Joe Rogans or the Sean Ryans. And the reason I bring these up, because you may just say, well, these are just podcasters. They don't represent everybody. They don't represent the vast majority of Americans. But what we're seeing is that these influencers, they have millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of followers. And me personally, and I'm sure many of you out there that are watching this video, but me personally, I've seen in my own daily life people that I know in my own community here where I live that are well-meaning Christians that probably 5 or even 2-3 years ago would have never been anti-Israel, but yet they are. They're speaking against anti-Israel because of the propaganda that they're being fed day after day after day in social media, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, X, YouTube, or their specific podcaster channels. But it is seeping through, and they are being brainwashed into this ideology. But I want to show you another clip here. This one is of Alex Jones. And this clip, again, was from a year ago. So these are not very old videos. They're very recent videos. But I want to show how Alex Jones brings on Alex Dugin. Again, keep in mind, I want to reference this by what I first showed you at the beginning, and how Joel Richardson introduced Alexander Dugin, who he is, his philosophy, his worldview, and his upbringing and his roots. So let's take a look at, see what Alex Jones has to say.
Alexander Dugin is a leading political strategist, best-selling author. I'd call him a philosopher. Very interesting. And they've called him Putin's brain, but he'll disagree with that. But he has been very influential in not just elite circles, but in the general population in Russia. And he was targeted by the Ukrainian NATO forces last year, and they killed his daughter, Daria. It's terrible, and I hate to bring that up. I just want to point out how real this war is. The head Russian general over their biological and chemical systems exposed, which Victoria Nuland admitted, that the U.S. under Obama had built biological weapons facilities all over Ukraine. First they denied it, then they had to admit it, then they blew him up a few months ago. I mean, this is serious business, and I've seen these different Ukrainian groups say they want me dead, they want Jack Posobiec dead. They sent a U.S. CIA-trained guy out of Ukraine to try to go kill Trump at the golf course. I mean, this is a big deal. And you've got the deputy leader in Canada is on the WEF board and is a Ukrainian operative as well. I mean, they've got a Ukrainian really Nazi, I mean, they really are Nazis for real, lunatic group that I think is one of the most dangerous groups facing Americans for political assassination, not just Russians, but the man we have on right now, his daughter was brutally killed by these people. So that's the type of folks we're talking about, true terrorist here. He's on X at AG Dugin, D-U-G-I-N. I want to go to him here, who's been gracious to join us, but I first wanted to play a short clip.
So again, you see Alex Jones almost promoting or trying to sell you Alexander Dugin. And for a brief moment, he kind of displayed his, I don't know if it was his X feed or his Facebook feed or one of his social media feeds, that he described himself as I believe it was a doctor of sociology, that he's a philosopher, a Russian philosopher. Again, that's the cover. The cover is that he's just an innocent bystander. He doesn't have any specific worldview that has to do against biblical matters or against Israel. It seems as if it's just something innocent. And if you didn't know his past, you didn't know where he was coming from, you would give this man credibility. Why? Because he is on these platforms that have millions upon millions upon millions of followers. And if they're platforming him, if they're putting him in front of you and are selling him to you, then certainly he's telling you the truth, right? Certainly everything he's saying is absolutely true. And if these top-notch podcasters are selling him to you, then you certainly have to follow him as well. I want to go on and share and read. I'm going to let you read along. I'm not going to read the whole article, but again, it's a Russian journalist by the name of, let's see here, what's his name? Andrei Loshak wrote an article not too long ago, a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, regarding Alexander Dugin. And again, I want to remind you, this is a Russian journalist, and I want to show you what he has to say. So let's look at that article. And it's actually from September the 2nd, 2022. And again, this is so you have reference, you can go look it up. I'm not going to read the whole article. You can go look it up and read it for yourself, but I'm going to read some parts of it. I remember accidentally attending a lecture by Dugin on angelic entities in the late 90s. It was an absolutely unbearable exercise in transcendental sophistry, dealing mainly with the image of Lucifer, the fallen angel, and featuring extensive quotations from Aleister Crowley. There were about 20 people of indeterminate age and gender in the auditorium. I thought at the time that perhaps they, too, were fallen angelic entities who had come to listen to a lecture about themselves. In the mid-90s, I ran into Dugin at a current 93 gig at the Ikra Club. He dearly loved English apocalyptic folk music for its commitment to Nazi Satanism. And I'm going to go ahead and jump down to a little bit lower here. It was also in the 90s that I visited the summer camp of Dugin's Eurasian Youth Union, a building at a dilapidated holiday resort near, and I wasn't gonna attempt to pronounce this, Zvenigorod, had been rented for this purpose. There were not many young people in attendance, about 30 or 40. Many were wearing Russian peasant shirts because Dugin had realized that his Nazi Satanist strategy had no great future in modern Russia, and so he had declared himself an old believer. Before meals, a round-faced, bearded man would proclaim in a bass voice, "Angels at the table," and those present would cross themselves. At night, the young people lined up with lighted torches on the banks of the Moscow River to take the oath of a Eurasian. Back then, Dugin adored the black magic ceremonies and the rituals with which Crowleyanism abounds. He and composer and musician Sergei, and I don't know how to pronounce that last name, had bonded over this stuff, and Dugin had ignited this gentleman with fascist ideas, eventually burning him to a crisp. So you can go on and continue to read this, but it's very disturbing to see where Alexander Dugin's ideology, or his philosophy, as some may say, come from. I also want to read another article. This one is specifically from Alexander Dugin himself. And I am probably going to read the majority of it because I just want you to see where his mentality comes from. So this one is this one was written March 25th of this year, actually. An article by Alexander Dugin, The War Trump Cannot Win. Trump could not, by definition, win a war with Iran, and he cannot. The only question is exactly how he will lose it. What he says carries almost no significance. It is simply agony, not only his personal agony, but that of the entire system. The Israel lobby, for all its extraordinary effectiveness, will drag Trump down into the abyss along with itself, and he will drag it down with him. This is guaranteed mutual destruction. Within the Zionist lobby, everything is extremely rational and carefully calculated, up to the moment when the final act arrives, the coming of the Messiah. That is the promissory note on which everything is built. It is issued against a future event. If that future does not arrive, everything collapses. Christian Zionism is even worse. Everything in it rests on pure hallucination, the rapture, and so on, which cannot come to pass, no matter how much one might wish it. Thus, the sum of rational steps taken by the forces that have now taken control of Trump concludes with an irrational chord, inevitably. Iran has its own eschatology, but it does not rely on it. It relies on resistance. Whatever Iranians may dream of, right now they are defending their homeland against an invasion of vermin, killers, and the Epstein coalition. Since the conciliatory leadership has been destroyed, only the hardest, flint-like people of the IRGC remain, people with nothing to lose and nothing to negotiate about, especially not with vermin, killers, and the Epstein coalition. So he's kind of likening Trump and the administration to an Epstein coalition. And if you don't understand why he's saying this, obviously because right now, as it stands, as the making of this video, Trump is supporting, to a certain extent, Benjamin Netanyahu and the attacks that have been going on in Iran to rid them of any type of nuclear threat or nuclear weapons. And we've got to keep our eyes right now on Turkey, because as Trump starts to move away from NATO, that will give Israel a chance to defend herself against Turkey and finally put an end to the threats that have been coming from Turkey. So right now, as it stands, it would seem that Trump is pro-Israel and is helping out Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis. And you can see that Alexander Dugin is writing against Trump, calling it the Epstein coalition. He goes on to say, the Iranians hold the cowardly, wavering Arabs in utter contempt, and the artificial paradise those Arabs have so carefully constructed. They will gladly smash it. They are already smashing it. Reaching Israel is more difficult, but they are reaching it as well. With even greater fervor, they are ready to blow up the global economy, energy, systems, and business, to cut internet cables on the seabed of the Strait of Hormuz, and to sink the vaunted Western fleet, military and civilian alike, with cheap naval drones. The Zionists advance eschatologically. The Shiites defend eschatologically. The Iranians do not live off the future. They resist desperately with all means here and now. So he's almost making it out to be as the Iranians are the ones who are being retaliated against. The Iranians are the passive ones, not the aggressors and not the terrorists, when in fact we know that they are the leading terrorist organization of the world. And he goes on to say, seeing this, Trump faltered. Naturally, he does not believe in any Messiah, nor in dispensations, nor in Amalek, nor in Gog and Magog. He believes in himself and in high stakes, unrestrained stock market gambling. This is not religious madness, but rather egocentric psychopathy against the backdrop of general senile exhaustion and the consequences of his turbulent escapades on Epstein's Island, which have left deep marks. It is not impossible that at the last moment, Trump will decide to abandon this trajectory, which clearly leads to a cliff, blame everything on the alcoholic Hegseth, and try to ride once more the wave from which he is rapidly slipping. But then he would have to sacrifice the Zionists. They would release footage from the Epstein files, yet by that point, Trump might no longer care. Or perhaps he will not sacrifice them or simply sink like a stone or die from the strain. He is no longer young. He already falls asleep at press conferences, occasionally fails to recognize those around him. He laughed at Biden, but the years take their toll. For now, the main thing is that Iran holds out, that it endures just a moment longer. The fate of humanity depends on this. Everything stands on the edge of final collapse, yet whoever falls first will give the opposing camp the opportunity to regroup and attempt something. At the same time, the tech brothers of Silicon Valley have their own eschatology. The head of NVIDIA declared the day before yesterday that AGI is already here. Therefore, the singularity about which Elon Musk warned has arrived. Humans are no longer needed, and the tech brothers conclude coldly, and perhaps they have their own intentions regarding these eschatological battles. It is no coincidence that their ideologue, Peter Thiel, tours Europe with lectures on the Antichrist and the Catacomb. By Antichrist, he means Soros, the globalists, and Greta Thunberg, which is correct. By the Catacomb, he means himself, an artificial general intelligence, which is entirely incorrect, since this too is the Antichrist, only a more advanced, cutting-edge one. We see Alexander Dugin in his own article written in March of this year, trying to take on a facade of being a Christian with end times views and talk about a Messiah and talk about the end of the world, and taking the position that the Iranians, the terrorist regime, are victims, and that Israel or that Trump, by the way, I'm apolitical in this. I understand right now that Trump is supporting Israel. I don't see how long that's gonna stay, and that's a topic for a different video. But as it stands right now, he is supporting Israel militarily. And Dugin's article, in which he writes, equates Trump's administration as the Epstein coalition, meaning that he is an evil person, that we shouldn't be listening to him. And really, do you really believe that Dugin cares about Epstein? Do you really think he cares about what Epstein, or about the victims? That's what I meant to say. Do you really think that he cares about the victims that fell at the hands of Epstein and all the conspirators, all the people that were involved with that? Do you really think that Alex Dugin cares about them, knowing where he came from and his ideology, his worldview, what he thinks truly about the Bible and about God and about Yeshua and about the God's chosen people and about the promised land that's given to them? Do you really believe that he cares about those victims from Epstein? Absolutely not. He doesn't. He's using that as a tool to pull at your heartstrings, to be against anybody who is aiding Israel at this time. Now, my fear is, and it's really coming to pass because, as I mentioned before, even though Trump is right now militarily supporting Israel in these attacks on Iran and their nuclear caches, the sentiment in the United States as a whole, as a matter of fact, the majority of people right now, so the polls say, are against what's going on, against America helping out Israel militarily, politically, in all sorts of ways. They are against what's going on, and they want to abandon Israel to herself. And they put it under the cover of America First, as if America First doesn't mean to be biblically first. Because if you're biblically first, then you are taking care of Israel. You are blessing Israel, and you're supporting Israel militarily and politically in all sorts of ways. That is, if you are truly America first, then you will be Bible first, which means that you will be blessing Israel. So they put it under the banner of America first, meaning that you have to go against Israel. Well, if you're against Israel, then you're pro-Iran. You're pro-Iran. You're pro the terrorist organization or the terrorist regime and the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah and all these. So you're really not America first, are you? You're claiming to be America first, but when you say that, you're supporting the Iranian regime. So it's really not America first. This is a cover, and make no mistake about it. Don't be deceived by what's going on in our nation today. And as I started out this video, what's concerning is that it's coming from the conservative Christian community. And never before has that ever happened. Not with the extent and with the influence and with the numbers growing as fast as they are against Israel. Guys, we are seeing biblical things coming to fruition, coming to happen right before our very eyes. And we got to wake up. We got to wake up. And I hear this all the time from the Christian community that they chant this, and it sounds, and there's nothing wrong with this phrase, but they're using it in a demeaning manner, saying Christ is king. Do I believe that Yeshua is king? Absolutely. Anybody who follows the scriptures understands that, of course, Yeshua, Jesus, is king. Of course he is. But they're using that slogan because they're trying to bash Jews and Israel over the head with that slogan, when the Christian community really doesn't realize that that slogan in and of itself is a Hebraic, a Jewish mindset, an idiom. Moshiach HaMelech, Messiah the King, Christ the King. It's a Jewish idiom. It's not a Christian idiom. It's a Hebrew idiom. And it's in regards to the one who is going to come and fulfill Ezekiel 37, the two-stick prophecy the two sticks will come together, Ephraim and Judah, that they're going to come together as one stick, and one king, one God will rule over them forever, for eternity. And that's what that term, Christ is king, or Messiah is king. That's what that entails. You can't have Christ is king without supporting Israel. You can't have the Messiah, as Alexander Dugin put in his article. Just because he puts the name Messiah in there, we're supposed to believe he's some Christian, he's some believer in God. You can't just, and if you want to believe in the Messiah, then you have to believe the whole scriptures, the parts that say that that land was promised to God's people. Everything that's happening today has to do and is revolving around the land that God promised his covenantal people, and all those that choose to sojourn with them. And you would call them Christians, call them whatever you want. That term Christian has been hijacked. It's lost its meaning, because if you say that you're a Christian, then you have to be America first. If you say that you're a Christian, you have to say that, oh, I'm against what Israel is doing in the Middle East, defending herself. I heard Tucker Carlson the other day, and I was going to have this clip. I didn't cue it up, but where he's appealing to his listeners and saying, hey, Christians, did you know that Israel just bombed, and I believe it was Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken, just bombed Syria or Lebanon and killed a whole bunch of Christians. Are you going to take that? And I'm paraphrasing him, but he's in not so many words trying to antagonate the Christian community, saying, look what Israel is doing to Christians. They are killing Christians. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to still support Israel? Do you still support Israel? Are they the true Jews of the Bible? Are they? And he's trying to infuse the ideology of Alexander Dugin into everybody that listens to his show, and not just him, but many other influencers. They're trying to indoctrinate you into believing what they believe, into what Alexander Dugin has been infiltrating all these people with their mindset and been brainwashing them. And we know where his theology comes from, where his worldview comes from. Nazism, Satanism, communism. So this is I hope that you got some value out of this video, out of this information. Please consider subscribing, liking this video, and sharing it with as many people as possible. And if you have questions, if you disagree, I'm okay with it. But let's talk about it. Let's discuss this. Leave me some comments down at the bottom and let me know what you think. Until next time, shalom.